Hi, Polly here. So, yeah, look, Tales of Old Traveller Days. So, must have been 1982. Um, I'd been very much involved with playing Traveller, but my friend Damien and I, we were on like playtest teams for Trillion Credit Squadron and the design rules for the ships and so on. And we ran some very famous and ludicrous empires in these massive international games that were done of the thing. And I'm very pleased to see today that the horrendous scars that our horrible mini-maxing and concepts, they're still there. So kick ships, like ships that have a there's one ship is the tanker, and it fuels up another one to jump. Russian doll ships, which are that, but then what's jumped is another fuel tank bladder and another ship, so you could go jump, 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 jump. God, so many different things. We were the grand masters of making the 99.999 ton fighter, because if it's 100 tons, it's not a fighter, which means it doesn't get all of the massive extra advantages that fighters got, etc., etc. But we had this habit of running very large games at conventions, because our idea was anyone can just play like a game with their friends, 5 or 6 people around a table. So the conventions should offer something different. So what we did was said, let's run the Traveller tournaments at these major conventions that we were helping set up, but it's a game with 200 people in it. One Traveller game, 200 players. So, because I was running one of the university games clubs at the time, so I had lots of people I could bring in. So these are all umpires and umpire plants. So basically playing non-player characters that were designed to keep the game going, and we would set up these scenarios. So the first one we did was actually very clever. We had a very large room that had several smaller boardrooms come off it. So the idea was you are all on an exploration vessel. It's a big mothership that is going into areas, and we had big sort of whiteboards up and everything that had the layout of the system and what's known about it and so on. You're getting briefings and so on. And there were a set number of shuttlecraft that you could take out to go and explore. What you had to do was turn up in front of one of the umpires and say, we have a shuttle crew. And the umpire was, all right, you're not allowed out unless you've got someone that can fly it. He has to have, pilot skill, someone that can repair it. If you've got those, yes, ching, he gives you one of the shuttles, which comes out of like the envelope. So there was only a set, limited amount of them. And then each of these boardrooms was one of the destinations that you could try taking it to. So you would get an umpire who would take you off, and there were like sheaves of different scenarios that were set on these different places. And then we would sort of the morning scenarios, and then the ship moves on to a new planet, and there was a whole kind of overarching plot for what's actually going on, and there's stuff going on the ship as well. And again, one of my friends, he figured, there should be more stuff going on to involve people who aren't out exploring, and so he just decided to set up a casino on board. So this guy goes out of the room to get his stuff from the hotel room, and he comes back. For some reason, he's got his own roulette wheel, which he sets up there. He's got a croupier's hat and a little croupier's rake and everything, and he sets this thing up, and he just spins this roulette thing. 22. Oh, 22. 22 again. What are the odds? Anyway, and then people started to gather. He had a really good patter, and he begins to shuffle cards, and shuffle cards, turns over, ace of diamonds. Shuffle, splits the deck, turns it over, ace of diamonds. Turns it over, ace of diamonds, and then just starts dealing cards to these people. Says, and I've never played in my life, and God help us, they sat down to play with him. It's like, no, don't do this. And what he was doing was he was actually driving people into debt so that, we can get that debt off you. the company will cover that, but you have to go off and do this special mission, So that was the first thing we ran. A nifty idea. We began to do this regularly. So another year we had a magnificent one, Nueva Catalonia. So when I was young, I read Homage to Catalonia. Big interest in the Spanish Civil War because I'm that person. So what we put in the convention handbook was designed to sound lame. It's, okay, so you're all on a tour ship. You've all got this tour, and what happens is you'll be taken to a series of resort worlds and planets. Lucky you, you've all been the croquet winners. The first stop is Nueva Catalonia, and Nueva Catalonia is a sunny and idyllic world. It's ruled by President Juan Carlos Jesus, who has been unanimously re-elected president for the 21st time running. And there were just like pictures of kind of South American peasants in fields with false smiles waving, while behind them you just got like a guy with a rifle just kind of smoking, keep waving. And this was just as sus as. And so as people turned up to the con, I can hear them chatting. And, this is ridiculous. Yeah, I said we take over the ship. We'll pirate the ship and we'll go out and we'll do this and we'll do that and the other thing. Aha, no, because we are assholes. So I gathered everyone together. 200 players come thundering in. And there was a guy in our club that had the nickname El Gargoyle because he was a very funny guy, but he was 4'5", quite small. There were a couple of gamers who were like enormously tall. They were like 6'5". And these guys, they'd run off and done that. Their own thing was great. So I sort of said, ladies and gentlemen, the ship has landed and you've all come out across the tarmac. You're escorted into the airport buildings. They're about to process your luggage and everything. But a great surprise, ladies and gentlemen. You have a very special VIP visitor who is welcoming you onto the planet. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce El Presidente Juan Carlos Jesus. And everyone like, clap, and in comes the gargoyle. And he has gotten, it's a Thai bus conductor's hat. And this looks like the peaked hat worn by the Grand Admiral of the North Korean Navy. It's like this peaked cap, but enormous proportions. But what he's gone and got fridge magnets that are shaped like fruit. So he's put those over the brim, and then he's made shoulder boards, which he's got more fridge magnet fruit on as his insignia. And the two really tall gamers, they are dressed in sort of khakis, as kind of South American kind of guards. They've got like little kepis, they've got cigars, and they've got giant neon pink water pistols and so on. And one of them is solemnly carrying a crate under one arm, and they walk in to the Imperial March from Star Wars, dun 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 dun, dun, and people are like, yeah, yay! People yelling, yay! Viva el Presidente! And one of the guards puts this crate down, and El Presidente stands up on it. He says, "Visitors, friends of Nueva Catalonia, we welcome you to our beautiful planet." Like, yay! Viva el Presidente! Viva el Presidente! He says, "And now, I know that, like me, you wish nothing more than peace and prosperity for everyone who lives on this planet. So, yeah, but recently, rebels have risen up against our government. Terrorists who have attempted to destroy everything that we have built here. And, boo, down to the rebels. Viva el Presidente," says. And so, I know I have your support in that way fight against these terrible people. Yeah, Viva el Presidente, Viva el Presidente, yeah. Which is why I now welcome you all into the army of Nueva Catalonia. And absolute silence falls. And one little voice in the back goes, "What?" And says, "All right, so line up, you'll get your equipment. If you just all go form a neat line, please." And a couple of other of the umpires have set up a table with all these sort of equipment cards and things for them. And someone goes, hey, we don't have to take this. There's tons of us. Let's just rush him. So El Presidente just points to two guys in the front row and says, "You two, you're promoted to be part of my presidential guard." arrest that man and take him over to the corner. Oh, so these guys run over and grab this guy and put him over in the corner and says, what? Someone else calls it, hey, this is ridiculous. Come on, let's just rush the podium or something. And El Presidente points at another two guys. You two are now promoted to the Presidential Guard. Go and arrest that guy. And so these guys then run off. And they decided that they deserve better uniforms. So there's some props and so on in the corner. So they rustle around and they get these mighty sort of shoulder boards they all proudly put on themselves. Everyone else races off doing what they're damn well told. And El Presidente briefs his new presidential guards, who are having the time of their lives, because this guy's got nothing. But they're now like enforcing his mighty word. And so people start getting these cards, which are the equipment, and it's good. So it's a 1 bolt action rifle, 7.62, 1 bolt action rifle, 7.62. Good. Get it down there, get your ammunition. And so someone would be handed, okay, so you've got 5 10-round magazines of 9mm. So, what? But no, I need 7.62. Well, we've only got 9mm. So there you go. You get your 9mm. What? Yeah, that's all you got. You get this mismatched equipment, and you get money. We had made money, actually printed it for the con, and it was brilliant. The idea was, Nueva Catalonia, because we do not wish to stress our printing industry, the idea was the money was prime numbers. So I think there was something like they were taco notes. There was a 3 taco note. I think there was a 7 taco note, and there was something like, I think it was like a 37 taco note. Yeah. And the idea is you can make a purchase of any amount so long as both of you have enough change. So, but, so someone would be trying to buy something, and it's like, oh, okay, well, this is, how much is this? Oh, it's only 1 taco, so, hang on, you give me, I'll give you 3 threes, and you give me a 7 back. Oh, no, so then you will have paid 2 tacos, and I could not do that. I would be overcharging, I'd be ashamed. Oh, hang on, a 37, hang on, you give me, and trying to figure out. Now, every single thing on the money was funny. The figures in the middle are all asterisk characters, usually the dog or something. And there was advice on it, this note is legal tender, okay? So, microfine, this note is legal tender, okay? So, hey, you should really not lose it. With this kind of money, you really could afford to be careful. Hey, have you considered opening a bank account in the in the Bank of Nueva Catalonia? We almost have no bank robberies. And when I say almost, of course, that means there are some, etc. The serial numbers on the notes were actually all the serial numbers from various great airship disasters. R101 and all this sort of stuff. And they were funny. There was a whole, but they were bright red. Now, as we were playing, every hour on the hour as the clock reached up, all prices doubled, because the idea is that the inflation is going crazy and your money is worth nothing. So as this went on, people are ending up with sort of these huge Weimar Republic style baskets full of notes, and it's like, oh my god, they finally figure out that it's every hour that the inflation's kicking in, so they're desperately trying to make purchases before bong, so trying to figure out the change and everything. Quick, hurry man, hurry, for God's sakes. And then we printed up some electric blue notes and left them around, and people started grabbing notes. Oh, that's just money lying around. So they'd grab it and they'd run off with it. And then there's an announcement, it has been discovered that there are counterfeit notes currently in circulation. Possession of counterfeit notes means you are distributing counterfeit notes, and the penalty for distributing counterfeit notes is execution. So these people are desperately, we are sending out the Presidential Guard now to check and see if anyone is carrying counterfeit money. So these guys are desperately running around trying to hide this stuff. And then we did the whole MASH thing where suddenly all of the red script is being changed to green script, etc., etc. And people are desperately trying to find rifles and ammunition that matches, and they're being sent out on missions, and there's scenarios for everyone. Now, there were these local animals called the vamos that they could ride, and these had been on the planet when these guys turned up, and so these things are just used as kind of riding beasts. They were kind of a nifty thing. They had big teeth and big kind of claws, but they would kind of race you around everywhere. As it turns out, they were actually an intelligent life form, which had allowed members of its race to basically infiltrate humanity, in this little city that they ran on this world, so that when the whistle finally blows, these are sown all through society, and when the Great Rebellion comes, these guys can all basically start, turning and rending their masters. So the military's riding them, people have got them sort of as their household transport, there's kiddie rides down the beach. So eventually, in the middle of all this wonderful chaos, yes, the mighty Vamos revolution is happening, and the people are being pushed back to back. There's a giant map showing that all these fancifully named divisions and brigades and so on, which are just people suddenly figured out their little games group of half a dozen people. It's like, yeah, but we're in the 9th Brigade, and so there should be thousands. We're calling for artillery support. Well, Bob over there's got a mortar with 3 rounds. Yeah, but we've got a number. We're told we could phone this number on the mobile phones if we needed artillery support. Says, oh well, dial it. All right, we dial it. Says, good. Bob's phone rings. Well, pick it up. Who is it? It's your friend over there. So, what does he want? Well, I've called this for artillery support. No. You, as far as you can tell, Bob's the artillery support. His mortar. Well, where's the 9th Division? Turns out, no. You guys are the 9th. That's it. It's just half a dozen of you. It's just grandiose unit titles. But everyone's finally pushed back. This is it. Things are looking grim. Things are looking dark. And then the tour ship comes back to collect everybody, and they fight their way onto it. That thing was a scream of a scenario, absolute scream. And there were some strange bits happening out. Like there's some guys who decided that they attacked a convent because they decided they had some orders saying that there was a missile base in this area that had some kind of giant rocket that was going to be used to. The rebels were going to use it to attack the city, so they decided that this church steeple must be a rocket launcher, and that all these women running around in strange black uniforms. So these guys, yeah, they must be like rebel guards. So yes, they thundered in there, blazing away at nuns and orphans. Oh God, the humanity was terrible. We didn't know a very strange scenario, and this was a really neat one, and this went into sort of some interesting role-playing territory. TADS. So the idea is it's a giant water pool, and everyone gets a badge, and on that was this simple tadpole shape, an oval. It's got a little slit of a mouth, a dot of an eye, and a little wiggle of a tail. And the room we had for this was a long hall. So he said, okay, this end of the hall here is deep. This is the bottom of the pond. This end of the hall over here is the surface. And there are bits in between. And we had some side corridors and so on. It says, good, through this corridor, these are the caves. Through this corridor, set of corridors here, this is fast water stream and so on. Now, there were adventures that you could do in the different regions, but there was food that you can scavenge in these different regions. And there was an umpire that would go around and he would leave food tokens, which are color-coded depending if they're of what they are. And then as you gathered these things, you could go to a umpire and turn them in. And the umpires, we had these sheets, and you would evolve. Now, your size would go up depending on the amount of food you're eating over time. So if you eat a lot of food and consistently eat a lot of food, your size goes up, so become bigger and butcher. Now, there was a mat of algae that grew kind of at the surface. So you could always get enough to survive. If you didn't get food, you'd die. But you could always go up and eat some algae was the idea. But the other foods do something. And this is where all the weird shapes of like tropical fish and tropical fish tanks come from. So if you were getting stuff that was, worms and things down the bottom, you would start to evolve to become flatter. And you would start to you could hyper evolve if you turned up and ate sort of nothing else but a certain thing. So you would get shapes like catfish. You would start to get whiskers, and you'd be like have a flatter nose because you can nose things out. And you get some notes on your thing. You now have like these bonuses for different senses. But if you really kind of specialize in that, you might flatten down to become something like a ray. But there was kind of areas that had tall weeds. If you're in the weeds and feeding, you tend to become flat like a discus fish. If you ever watch those, they go in between tall weeds and it's a flat, thin fish. That's why it's that shape. But the reason it's kind of a round thing is it can eat stuff on the bottom, eat stuff on the top. It's quite a nimble shape. Other areas, like in the caves and so on, there were small areas to get things. You tend to turn more into an eel and so on. One guy did bugger all. He just stayed exactly up the top and he just ate, and he would just come in with buckets of this algae. So his physical shape never changed, but he became enormous because everyone else ignored the algae because it was boring, and this guy just he just ate it all. He ate like 10 times as much as any being should, so he just ended up this enormous sphere. But suddenly all the water starts drying out, and these things start having to evolve to get out onto the surface. So the shapes that you were now guided what you turned into on the surface. So some of the flat stingray things were quite good at leaping out and eventually kind of flying. They became like a flying creature. Other things, the fins evolved into feet. The giant guy that had just been eating up the top essentially turned into an elephant. His fins turned into these kind of stumpy legs, and he just bumbled along as a titanic sphere. And off they can go and explore the surface now. The background to that scenario was it was actually a berserker. It was a massive machine that had been programmed to turn up and strip systems bare of resources. Someone had seeded these creatures on it essentially as a bioweapon designed to sabotage it. But as the machine noticed you were initially sort of in its coolant system, which is what all these caves and all these other things were. Once it started noticing you, it started trying to make things to get rid of you. So it would start creating machines to fight you. So you had to go and find where they're coming from, disable those, get into the machines. And there were things where you could sort of download information. And so there was a whole scenario in there. But yeah, it was a really cool idea. It's a very interesting bit of role-playing. So yeah, it was funny. Eventually, the conventions actually kicked us out, because what was happening is people were turning up to play Traveller because that was the star of the show, the absolute star. Everybody wants to play these huge scenarios which were like hilarious and different, and so the other games were spinning the dummy because the Traveller thing was like running all day every day throughout the whole con. It was the thing. And so it was just, sucking up most of the convention members. So yes, they decided they would ban this style of running Traveller, these giant freeform tournaments, so that it would go to normal sit down around a table tournaments, and that was easy for organising. It's a shame. They were a really interesting idea. I haven't really seen anyone else do it. We did a couple of minor ones for other conventions on the same idea, freeforms. Australia was we were quite famous for doing these freeform. So I did Lace and Steel ones at some conventions and so on. But yeah, it was certainly a movement, and it was certainly a great thing. Like CanCon started running its own on that model and so on, because it was just such a cool thing. But no, the conventions shut us all down. It'll be kind of neat to do it again. It does require a dedicated team of umpires and some sneaky bastards to play NPCs who kind of push things along and help out those who've got questions without those people knowing it's actually an undercover umpire that's doing this stuff. So yeah, anyway, it was good days, and there was some really good scenario design and basic ideas going there. I'd love to do it again. Anyway, cheers.